He's always got the time.
Is that because of his... I can't say that. He's got a watch. Have the size of his
Zoom
watch.
into his watch. It's a great watch, but he's always got the time.
Now, I don't like to throw around the term football royalty too loosely, but 200 AFL games and a Brownlow medal is just that. This guest played in 2 grand finals across his time at the D's and the Pies, but his greatest achievement may have come more recently, seeing his son play at the top level in the red and blue. I'm looking forward to discussing all that and more on this episode with Shane Woewodin. Shane, thanks very much for coming down. I always appreciate every guest's time, but you're on a holiday down from Perth, so an extra special effort to get out here.
My pleasure, Benny. Thanks for having us. Great to be here.
Media week for you off the front bar last night. How did that go? I'm sure you get hit left, right and centre. You never know what's coming. They're pretty good, those producers, at finding the dirtiest of dirt. How was it?
It was great. It was a lot of fun. I was intending on doing it early in the year, but things just didn't work out for us where I couldn't get over and whatnot, and coaching and work and a few things in Western Australia. So back into the year, it happened for us and it tied in with round 24. So it was a perfect one and a little segue into the game to try and catch up with Taj and a few other things and have a bit of fun last night. And on reflection, great fun. Really enjoyed it. Great banter. Pulled some old stories out and some archive vision that they had pulled out of the depths of Channel 7 there, which some of it I was a bit surprised. I actually forgotten about it and you don't realise it. So, it was a bit of fun. It was good.
Obviously, you're a past player, you're a father of a current player. There's plenty to talk about, but you are down in Melbourne. How often do you come? What's the sort of strategy behind getting down and hopefully seeing Taj when he does play? But what's your schedule like?
Yeah, we try to get over here 3 to 4 times a year if we can, and then sometimes try and tie it in. We've got an older son who lives in Brisbane. We've got 2 grandkids too, so we try and tie that in. Although I haven't got up there enough as well, so. A bit difficult when you got 4 kids and you get 2 over interstate and trying to catch up and tie it all in together with work and getting leave and stuff like that. But we love getting over and having a break. 3 or 4 days is all you need here and escape the weather and get back to sunny Perth and just to enjoy. And I miss watching live footy too, so having a bit of that and try and catch up with Taj playing, and it's a bit of fun. And then also our friends who we had here for 10 years. It's important you continue those relationships and friendships and stay true to them.
It's often spoken to the players when they're drafted about moving away from home. From a parent's side of things, how was it having Taj move to Melbourne on the other side of the country?
He was very similar to me. He couldn't wait to get to Victoria. That's where he wanted to play. I was very similar. Just get out of Western Australia, move away from home, grow up, as they say, and become independent. And it was a good move for Taj as well. So he couldn't wait to get here. Although it's difficult, probably a bit more so for mum, really, who another one leaves the nest. But you're as proud as punch when these guys leave and just go and chase their dreams and venture off into the big world and create their own pathway.
How has it been watching his development and rise into the AFL world?
Oh, it's exciting. It gets frustrating. You want to see your kid do well. You want to see him play regularly, and it doesn't happen. And so it's bouncing those emotions all the time too as parents and trying to keep them level-headed where they're going. It's okay. And it can be an emotional roller coaster as a parent. I've always found it difficult, or not difficult, more nervous watching him play than I ever did when I played at all. So, but it's fun. It's really exciting. It's great to see them, run around, doing what they love doing, and applying their craft.
Early days, first games, first goal, kicked a ripper against Brisbane from the boundary. What are those emotions like sitting in the stands?
Yeah, you're really good. He missed his first one in his first game against St Kilda at Marvel, which was close. But to see him run on the G for the first time and hit one through the big sticks is pretty exciting. It was a fair goal for him too, and just elation and get the ball rolling, get the career going, and different roles too. He probably didn't come into AFL footy playing his normal role as either inside or outside mid, so probably play a little bit of time more forward, which is pretty foreign for him. But I think that's the best part about him, his flexibility and versatility as a player too. So he can play multiple roles and just help the team anywhere he can.
He's actually been stuck as sub a few times. That's a rule that everyone hated when it was initially in the league, and then it sort of got brought back for concussion, and all of a sudden we're back in the position where everyone hates the sub again. I'm sure he doesn't love sitting on the boundary for 3/4 of a game. Kynan Brown has played 2 games and he's played about 5 minutes in both those games, another father-son. How do you go watching when Taj is sub? I guess it can't be easy.
No, it's not. It's, I think 10 of 16 this year he played as sub. It is what it is, isn't it? You can't do anything about it. You can't control it. It's the worst rule in AFL, to be honest. I think certainly the AFL have got to really look at it now to scrap it, because I think there's so many parts to it. It's not just the player who is the sub for the game. That sub, if he only gets 5-10 minutes, which Taj has done regularly this year, it's then backing up again the following day to play VFL, or if you're interstate and your VFL team plays the next day back in Melbourne, travel down, prep yourself again for another 24 hours and try and do it all again, which is really difficult. But also I find it, and I reckon players would also, it's the players who have started and playing also feeling very anxious if they haven't touched it or having an impact before half time. They're starting to think also, I think it's me today, I'm getting subbed. So it plays a real mental game. And I think from a mental health point of view, that can't be great either for players as well, playing full game. So I'd love to see it just go straight 23, whether or not you leave the rotations as is or bump them up to 80, 85, but play 23 and be done with it. I think it's a great opportunity to have that 23rd. If it's a young guy playing a few minutes, might not play 80, 85% game time, might play 60, but at least he's playing AFL footy. It's another opportunity to develop another kid.
100%. Another funny one with debutants is, I was thinking about this last night, is the FaceTime. It's become a big thing in the social media world where a kid gets told he's going to debut and he FaceTimes his parents. And the parents always, seem surprised and all that sort of thing. I'm guessing as a father, especially one that has been around the industry, you sort of know when your kid's going to be close to getting a game. And I mean, if I called FaceTimed my dad at 10 a.m. on a work day, he's probably thinking this is a bit weird.
Yeah.
So from your end, receiving that FaceTime call, is it, I know exactly what this is about?
It was a little bit about that, although you're still in the moment. I remember when it happened too. I was on the Tonkin Highway driving to a site with work over in WA. But it's like, why are you FaceTiming me? And you get this smug look on your face too. But yeah, there's a little bit of, I think this is the moment and it's finally happening. But you still can't forget, all the emotion still goes through you as if it is a surprise as well, if that makes any sense. So you still feel it, even though you probably do think it's coming or finally think it's coming. So yeah, it was a great moment. And then also him telling his mum as well, who I think mums get forgotten a little bit about in this whole thing too. They drive the ship and steer them on the right path just as much as the dads, even though we played and did their thing. But yeah, it was an unbelievable moment. I also remember the time the club nominated him as father-son 6 weeks before the draft, and that moment he accepted too before the draft. So it's those pivotal moments that are just unfathomable. You just can't believe it's finally happening.
It's great to see him going well. I want to speak about your career as well, and we've got to start with the vision of your famous goal.
Woewodin, good turn of speed through some pretty heavy traffic, couple of bounces, fancies himself, lovely ball, still Woewodin, Woewodin from half forward, kick a goal, son! Oh, goal!
Against Port Adelaide, 1998, a lot of bounces, a lot of run. It didn't win goal of the year.
No, it didn't.
How does that sit with you?
That's okay, yeah. Mine was round 5 and the Wiz, think about round 13 against the Hawks. And I hadn't seen it for a while until last night in the front bar. They showed it again. And you notice there in those games how the ground is so long, when I finally kicked that, David Schwartz, Gary Lyon, Russell Robertson, they're deep inside 50. They stretched the ground so early. They haven't emptied it. I haven't stretched the ground. They've stayed inside 50. So much space through the corridor. And I just thought when the opportunity was there, just going to take it on and see how we go. And probably carry on a little bit in the celebration. But I copped a bake when I got back to the centre bounce from Todd Viney. I was cooked after that. I was knackered, and then had a little glance to the screen when I was on my haunches, and I was told very quickly how important it is to refocus again and get yourself back in the game and not look at yourself at the screen.
What was it like playing with Todd Viney and some of the senior players when you first got to the club? There was Gary Lyon and I guess the era really shifted to when you sort of left and it was David Neitz that was taking over and Brad Green. But initially, those sort of older Melbourne figures.
Yeah, my first 3 years where I played with them all, unbelievable stepping in. And the Junction Oval was home, derelict, old, tiny. How is this an AFL facility? And when we're just starting to embark in full-time football, but the Junction Oval, for me anyway, and it represented all of us. It was just it's an iconic place, and we loved it. It was our home, even though felt like we were in the sewage, and it was a stinking place, but it was our home. And but playing with those types like Gary, Todd, Stinger, Jimmy Steins, the Lovitts, the Phoebes, they were exceptional and great leaders. And I felt 98 was our best chance for a flag, and to play with these guys who you role model yourself. They had an aura about them, they had a presence about them, and just being around them and learning, both on and off field, what it is to be an AFL footballer was just a great start to the journey.
Was there a most talented player you played with at the D's? It's a tough question. There are some incredible names. Does anyone stand out?
Oh, they all do for various reasons, and they applied their craft. I think a lot of my era, we speak about, because they all had their strengths in whatever areas they played. Like, like Gary and what he did forward, whether or not it was the Phoebes in their run off half back or on a wing, or Todd in his bullocking ways, just like what Jack does in the field. But we didn't get to see a lot of, and it was one of my mentors and idols was Stephen Tingay. We never got to see a lot of him because of his injuries and whatnot, but the presence and what he did on the field, and the Melbourne supporters would have seen a little bit more of him in the early 90s and when he was flying. But what he did, and not only for himself, but the younger crop around him, and everyone looked up to him so much. He did things differently, no doubt, but his work ethic, what he did in rehab was extraordinary. It was such a huge influence on me, but also a lot of the young guys around the footy club as well. He did have a big presence about him.
Your road to the club wasn't traditional in terms of being drafted at 18. You were 20 when you started. Did that help you have an immediate impact, do you think? You had a little bit of a more mature head on your shoulders?
Yeah, probably. Probably didn't. Yeah, I threw myself into 3 national drafts and didn't get picked up in either, but probably didn't and understand and know that I was ready at 18 or 19, probably from a physical presence. I wasn't impacting footy that much. So you just keep working at it and pushing through and finding ways to improve in all facets of your game and where you needed to take it. And I had some good groundings at East Fremantle in those mid-90s with, Ken Judge, Tony McCarl, Andrew Lockyer, Steve Malaxis, Glenn Davies, Stephen Bilsich. So I had unbelievable senior players around us then. And we learned a lot too as a young group coming through that ranks of what it takes to become a disciplined, hard footballer and trying to make your way in this game. And certainly Ishmael didn't make it easy for you. You certainly had to earn it through those areas. So I wasn't ready at 18, 19, but felt at 20 that here's my time. And when I finally got the phone call to come over and be invited to a pre-season, you just got to make that post a winner and do everything you possibly can to be in the coaches' faces, do what you can, throw everything at it and see what happens. And I'm just fortunate enough to be picked up in a pre-season draft in 97.
And your rise was pretty quick. You're obviously famous for the 2000 Brownlow.
And therefore I have much pleasure in declaring Shane Woewodin is the winner of the 2000 Brownlow medal.
Prior to that point, you'd only polled 12 votes, and I'm not sure what the record is, but I dare say most people that have won a Brownlow have got more votes in the bank in previous years. How shocked were you that you can go from being, I guess, a role player in a team to being considered the best player in the competition?
Yeah, well, and I was probably a role player in the first few years. I know Barmy and Hutchie my first year, and particularly the back half of my first year was more run with mid after probably starting at half back and then getting these roles to play on the best and learn from the best, and then probably a little bit of versatility in the next couple of years as to where I played. And it probably wasn't until that round 3 of 2000 where a couple of injuries and I was thrown around a little bit early parts of the year until Neil come to me at half time of that round 3 game against Sydney and said, need you to go inside and see what you can do. And that's where it all started. And played out for the remainder of the year and the following year. So, and then learn how to become a mid. Because I'd learnt off some of the great ones, learning to play on them, but then having to apply that now from an offensive point of view and become a dangerous mid myself in my own right, and see if I can impact more front half. That's what the learnings I took and went from it, and I just managed to somehow pull a medal away at the end of the year and run away with it. But it was an amazing year.
It's probably a good way to learn the patterns. Who were some of those players that, I guess, challenged you and that you had to tag, essentially?
Yeah, and full tag. So, Buckley, Voss, Koutafidis, to name a few. They were superstars in their own right, and all varying and different in their own way. Felt like Koutafidis for me, although bigger and stronger, just nullify his influence around stoppage and his third up and his strengths in that area, and see if I can work to my strengths in transition, where you play on a Brett Ratton or a Scott West or a Michael Voss. They're a bit of both. They can do it inside and do it outside a little bit too. With Kuta, you got to be careful he doesn't take you forward and influence in the air too because of his strength. So they all had different strengths, and little ways to how to combat you around stoppage as well, and little techniques you saw. And when I got to Brisbane as a coach as well, and having Michael as the senior coach and him still impacting, influencing the midfielders there, and me learning off him too, what he did as a player. Like, you just never stop learning. And then try to apply that and take it all into your own game.
Speak of Kuta, I had a mate donate a question for me. I don't know if you've seen his running for the mayor of Melbourne.
I did read that.
He's sent through Paddy Ryan. Are you considering running for Lord Mayor of Melbourne to steal another vote count from Kuta?
Certainly not. No. He was amazing that year. I think he was the MVP, Player of the Year. I think he'd only played till round 20. I think his injury curtailed those last few weeks, and he couldn't impact that last few weeks and probably take the medal himself. But yeah, he was enormous that year. He was a superstar. He really was.
What I love about watching the vote count is how much you cared. And I feel like players these days have to try to hide it for, I don't know what reason. It's Australian sport, I guess. But of course you want to win the Brownlow. Why wouldn't you? And you seemed so invested on the night. What was that experience like going through that count?
When you look at it now and you go, how ridiculous was your celebration? And you're the only one who's probably ever done it, where when people win it, it's just low key. I think I just get caught up in the emotion of it all, because you set your goals at the start of the year. I didn't set my goal to win it. You'd probably like to finish one of my goals. I wanted to win a BNF at Melbourne. I wanted to be a top 5 or top 10 in the medal count. You're starting to have an impact and put yourself out there a little bit more and set your lofty standards high. But rolling into the night, I didn't expect to win it. But after a good start and I did have a lull in the middle part of the year, but then came good towards the end. So I got caught up in it a little bit and just thought I'd celebrate the moment a little bit, and probably went a little bit over the top, considering I was sober and on the waters and about to play in a grand final, and probably put my emotions a bit higher than what the team was requiring back then. But it was fun. It was a great moment. It was, I'll never forget it.
Do you think that's a bad thing, though, that we continually knock people down? Like even the Josh Rochelle stuff in the past week, he's come out and had a bit of a cheeky crack at Port fans, and sort of people get divided on it. But we also want personalities in the game. I see it as a positive.
Yeah, I don't think we want to lose the personalities in the game. I think the old school way is you still got to respect the game, respect the environment, respect the opposition. That's what you were taught as a young guy coming into the environment, that you don't want to give Oppo or anyone any little leeway at all. But yeah, that's probably just me looking back at myself going, you look like a fool. What are you doing? But on reflection now, you go, it was in the moment. I celebrated. I would have, and I've said it before, I would have loved to have tied it with Westy. And I know there's votes through the night where you get some, you may not have, you don't, but you should have. So it all ties out in the end. But it would have been fitting to tie it with Westy in the end. And we toured Ireland together that year. And at the end of it, and in our tests, we were actually 2 mids who rotated together for the 2 tests. So built a bit of a friendship with Westy over there. But yeah, it would have been nice to be stand on the stage with him and celebrate, because he also had a great year too. But yeah, that wasn't to be.
You had the grand final parade that week, and this photo has been seen a little bit. It was sort of spoken about last night, your fashion and whatnot on the front bar, but you wore a pair of red glasses to the grand final parade. Were they the style at the time? They're probably not now.
No, not now, but at the time, yes. RNAs, they were sitting there with the Ox, and I was asked to, who wears their medal in a parade? But I was asked to wear my medal too, because I wasn't sure. I was 24, I was still young and inexperienced in a lot of ways too, and just soaking up. But everyone does say, just embrace the week and embrace everything about it. So you just fall into it, and because it may never happen again. And unfortunately, for 3 years later, I was able to do it again, but not with all that around me. So we're going to soak it up and really enjoy it. And people say don't wear sunglasses, and the orange RNAs, probably not a great look, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I wasn't reminded back then. It's just something I did, and we'd like to try grab a sponsorship or something at the time, but a bit of fun had.
That grand final, you go up against an incredibly strong Essendon team. I mean, you go in thinking you're a big chance. Looking back at it now, how tough was that challenge?
Tough, but we were very confident we could do this. I think we played them round 10 and lost by 4 goals maybe, so we knew we could match it. They were physically bigger, stronger than us. I remember having a coffee with Neil, maybe. So he was living in Western Australia too when he was working at West Coast. He said a couple of things. Oh, geez, I wish I had have done this and done that. Things may have been different. It may not have. But they were very good. But we did give ourselves a chance. We probably blew it early with some missed opportunities in front of goal, and which may have caused the momentum just to shift a little bit, but it didn't. Greeny in hospital by quarter time, the smashed larynx, Simo, bounce of the ball, and just how talented they were. They were across all 3 lines. They were very good. We're probably a little bit ahead of our time. We had a great run coming into the back end of the year, on the last 10 of 11, coming into finals, and just come up against a juggernaut who I think, and if I recall, hadn't sung the team song all year in their wins. If that's a memory or that's fact, I don't know. But they were pretty brutal.
You copped arguably a stronger side 3 years later when you played for Collingwood, 2003 grand final. That Brisbane midfield was incredible. How did you find the battle with, Michael Voss, Jason Ackermanis, Simon Black? These guys are still arguably the best midfield combination ever.
Yeah, very good. And we were a very good team at the Pies that year, and we were favourites in that grand final, not like we were with the Essendon Melbourne game where we weren't. We were favourites. We'd beaten Brisbane 2 weeks earlier in the qualifying final to advance to the prelim to play Port, and chock full of confidence, playing really good footy. And we thought we gave ourselves the best chance to win this one, and probably didn't pan out again. We had some things go wrong with us, with Anthony Rocker getting suspended in the prelim and not being able to be available for his grand final. And he's a big part of our structure and what we did in front of the footy. And that was a real emotional week with him getting up, us appealing, not happening at all. And then that day, just nothing went right at all. So I do recall the Tuesday, Mick come to me and said, I want you to go and play on Simon Black and play mid and run with him. And I went, how good? Because I'd played generally wing as a Collingwood player, and I thought, here's a great chance on try and nullify Simon, a good mate of mine, but a superstar. And so I started on him, did the vision, did the education, started on him, and we did both okay in the first. I think we had 6 or 7 touches each, and I'd kicked a goal, and then the message came at quarter time that I was to go back out into a wing. And so for whatever reasons, they're making these decisions in the box, and that's happened. I've never had the coffee with Mick as to what that decision was made. I was pretty dirty after, because I wanted to finish this job off, and then Simon's gone 13, 12, 9 and won a Norm Smith medal. So, they were brutal, very good, talented, and just were a bit hungrier than us on the day.
For those listening to this that aren't familiar with your career, we've jumped from a Melbourne Brownlow 2000 to a Collingwood Grand Final 2003. The trade, from the research that I've done, I was probably 6 at the time, but it was pretty messy. You came out. I love the quote that I'm filthy. Like
Yeah.
you had a crack at the club, and
Yeah.
again, it's probably something you don't see now, but back then it was great.
I'm filthy at the club for doing it. Pretty downright rude, I thought.
How did that play out on your end? I know you were overseas at one point or on a holiday,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden this high-profile player has just been thrown to the pies.
Yeah, I was filthy. Oh, yeah, and that was, I think, that was at East Fremantle Footy Club in the off season. I was doing a function in Western Australia when the Western Australian media come at me, and I thought, here, I'm just gonna say what it feels. I'm just gonna put it out there, and like I was dirty, because you felt like you'd given everything, and you were very thankful for the opportunity the club had given you back in '97. But I'd worked my way and try to develop my leadership, and I'd become a vice captain. And although, yes, I'd won a Brownlow 2001, I didn't have a great year. I'm learning how to deal with being tagged and getting your game quiet and not having the impact you want to do. And we were a young team at that stage, so I really didn't have anyone to bounce things off. And how could I get through this? And how can I be better? And what do I do? And I wasn't fit enough in '01. So I had that year, and fair enough, I played poorly. I think I'm 11th in the best and fairest. But '02, I'd bounced back a little bit more, and then I felt I was a better player than I was the previous year. And the BNF didn't show it that way either. And that was another one where I was dirty on. And then we were in Bali for our footy trip when rumblings started to just come to us.
Is that the Bali bombings?
Yeah, that was an emotional time as a playing group too. And
you just missed being there, didn't you?
we were there. We were at the airport when the bomb went off. I remember us being in the line to get our luggage through, and Trav Johnson had come to us and had said he'd left his passport back at the hotel. So he had to go back to the hotel, get his passport, and come back to the. When he came back, that's when he said, "Boys, there's been a bomb." So we had that to deal with. We're on our way out, and the boys wanted to stay, but we just had to get through it. So, but the rumblings that week were, and messages were starting to filter into the boys, and then start to have conversations with me. What's going on? And I said, I've got no idea. I haven't heard anything. And then I got a call from Neil and said, when you come home, let's go have a chat. So, and I had a day between coming back from Bali and then going to Mauritius and having a holiday with my partner at the time. So, Neil came over and sat in my lounge room. We had a chat and worked through a few things. And it was a money thing. And he just wanted a bit of a hand to keep the list together. I think Matty Collins they were trying to keep him around, but couldn't. I'm not sure. There was some salary cap issues and whatnot. And I said, no problem, no worries at all. And said, yep, have X amount for the next 2 years. And Neil said, great, thanks, that'd be great, really appreciative. And then all of a sudden, shook hands, went away. We'll see you in pre-season in 2 weeks' time. Never stepped back in the footy club ever again. That was it. So it all went to shit really back then and whilst in Mauritius. So become a Collingwood player only a few weeks later.
Neil Danaher is so loved, and rightfully so, but I've got no doubt he was a pretty hard-edged sort of a coach, and that would have no doubt tainted your relationship with him for a while. How was that period with Neil?
Neil was an amazing coach. He was the one who instilled the confidence in me to become the player I was and the person I was wanting to become. Like, he was ruthless, there's no doubt. He was harsh, he was fair, but he let you play to your strengths and do it again, but he backed you in. Well, that's what I felt anyway when I was in my 5 years under him. I didn't have him my first year, obviously, with Barmy there and Hutchie. But yeah, and after that, certainly the relationship was tainted, no question about it. I was filthy. Whether or not he was all over it and what was going on, which I don't think he was. I think a lot of stuff was getting played behind him, and he had no control over it as the coach, which was part and parcel. I think everyone had to play their role. Neil was a big one about that, about getting the right people on the bus in the right seats to make a footy club work. And yeah, it didn't work. So yeah, the relationship was tainted after that. I'd lost trust. So that was the decision. I had one club really chasing and wanting me, and I had one club trying to push me out the door. So in the end, even though I still held the cards because I was contracted, I felt, in my own mind, I was going, that club doesn't want me anymore. And they're making it really clear verbally that they don't want me over the phone when I was in Mauritius. But I had one club who's just wanted to wrap their arms around me and pull me in and said, you can help us, take us to another one. So that in the end, that was the decision. Like, you don't want me, you do, I'm jumping there. And it hurt.
Yeah, for sure.
It hurt, but because I wanted to become a one club player. I wanted to have success at Melbourne, but in the end, I just see it now as I played a career at 2 fantastic footy clubs, and that was it.
You go and play under Mick Malthouse, who I'm guessing was just as ruthless as a coach. How was your relationship with him?
Yeah, really good. Probably again, I think the common denominator here's me was it was icy at the end, but Mick was amazing for us, and not only me, my family as well. I think every player who's played under Mick would say the same thing. He's such a family-orientated man who, I think what you see externally and on the outside the 4 walls is you get this harsh individual, but inside your 4 walls, he's your dad. He'll wrap his arms around you, and his playing group are like his sons. That's how it felt, and he'd back you again, like all coaches do. So we had felt that as a family, that he had just encompassing and bringing in and stuff. So it wasn't probably until the final year where we were going poorly at Collingwood. And as a player, you see it, you're very emotional. So when decisions are made on you as a player to be delisted or traded, you get heavily invested emotionally. It's not till you sit back and reflect post-career, you go, and now being a coach, you understand decisions that they make on you to make a list and be better. So, and whether or not he was looking for his own contract going forward, but yeah, it didn't end well at Collingwood either, but I understood why, years later. But he was a very good coach. Yeah.
Earlier, you spoke of Junction Oval. You get traded to Collingwood, who are in a really good spot in Richmond. How was the contrast between the 2 facilities and the 2 clubs and the standards within?
Yeah. I started at Vic Park. We were still there when 03, all of 03 and middle of 04. I didn't get to the Lexus Centre back then. It was a Lexus till middle of 04 when we moved in. Very, very different. Junction Oval, very similar to Vic Park. Old, falling down. I think the Legionnaire's disease had just gone through the pies before I got there. But it was like a home. It was a suburban ground. It was their home. They loved it. I loved it. Just a bit more of a trek going up Hoddle Street to get there. But yeah, contrasting differences between the 2 facilities when I got to the Lexus Centre. Chalk and cheese. Very different environment. What was provided for you too in terms of food, and it was all laid on the line. So yeah, they were a big step ahead. And I suppose money did talk back in the day, but they were a big step ahead about professionalism. I felt they trained harder too, and different leaders who set different standards. So it was a big eye-opener for me too. Like, I thought I trained hard and was going level. Until I got to the Pies, it was a completely different story. I had Nathan Buckley here, who was just a champion of the game, driving this ship with Scotty Burns and James Clement, Paul Lucuria, Tarkin Lockyer, who were just another level. So I had to compete and go up against these guys, and they set the standard. So I had another level to go to, which was good for me. So it set me to go even further and just keep pushing myself.
Do you think there is a big importance on having those elite facilities? Obviously, the D's are still a little bit behind some of the other clubs, having to go out to Casey and whatnot. But did you feel like it impacted your actual form personally?
I think it's not the be all and end all, because you make your environment what you want to make it and how you do it, but it certainly does help. It certainly gives you advantages where there's less travel. Like for Melbourne to go out at Casey and drive 45 minutes a couple of times a week or 3 times a week in pre-season, I don't know what they do, but that's difficult. right? But to have a home base, everything there at your beck and call for you to be able to make yourself the best person, the best version of yourself, to be able to perform every week, can't go unnoticed. Certainly it's got to help. So I felt it did. It certainly helped. All your facilities there, your recovery facilities, everything's done in the one spot. You don't have to be in a car all the time driving around. So it would help. And now all these clubs now starting to get these big facilities. Looking forward to the one day Melbourne gets theirs.
You are now a Melbourne person, obviously tied with Taj, but since leaving the club, you then went to Brisbane, assistant coach for a little while. I find it interesting to hear how people choose their club or where their heart sort of goes post-career when you do play at two different clubs and you had a bit of a messy exit potentially at both. How long did it take you to become a Melbourne person?
I fell out of love with the club when I left. I'd be honest with that. It didn't feel like... And when I finished the game and when I retired, I didn't support anyone. I just supported the game because I love it. And I was just fortunate enough to play at two footy clubs, so I didn't have an allegiance to one or the other. I just... I didn't even support anyone anymore. So I just loved the game and fell in love with coaching. So that was where all my passions were laying, really, with the game and how I saw it and how it evolved. So there was no impact to go to any club at all. Still had friendships, which I didn't want to lose. That's what you make of footy clubs. But it wasn't until I actually when Taj got drafted where you fell back in love or have a bit of a red and blue about you again all those years later. So when Taj get drafted 21, so 18, 19 years later is when you get back to becoming a Melbourne person again. And I still love Collingwood. I still love what they did for me. But with your son playing, you just got to be fully supportive of there. So it's probably where it's fell in love back with the club again.
And there's a pretty big D's-Pies rivalry at the moment, obviously on the back of a few things last year, and the rivalry's always been there. But you're not someone who, just because you're a Melbourne person, hates Collingwood like so many others do.
Oh, no, I love the Pies. I love the place, and it was good for me. Great people. They looked after me. And it's a fantastic footy club. They're passionate, parochial, one-eyed. But that's what you want, isn't it? Like, to play in front of great for sport, to play in front of 100,000 people who just adore you and love you and just love their team is what it's all about. And that's why they're so successful. And yeah, I don't hate them at all. I reckon they're great for the game and they love it. So yeah, it's a great rivalry. It's got it with Carlton, whether it's a King's birthday now with Melbourne. Yeah, it's a big club and people are jealous of them because they're so successful in different ways. So, and that's why I think people love to hate them.
Just prior to Taj getting drafted was the 2021 Premiership.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only time we briefly crossed paths during my time at the club. I pulled you aside for a moment in the Premiership rooms. It was a bit of a mess down there, and I was trying to just get whatever content I could. I remember seeing Jack Treng go, so I grabbed Max Gorn, got a photo with a couple of captains, saw Bernie Vince, got him with James Harms, and then I saw you, and I thought I need to get a young midfielder. So Tom Sparrow was nearby. Not sure if you'd ever met him, but I pulled the two of you together for this photo. How was the grand final experience? You said you probably weren't fully invested as a Demon fan yet, but I guess Taj was going to be joining pretty soon. What were you like that night?
Yeah, because that was an amazing time to have it in Western Australia. We're pretty lucky. I know the iron wall was up for no one could get in at that stage, but I was in the rooms for and I got the AFL invited us to an event there, and we got to soak it up and got my 2000 grand final jumper on there, the one I wore. But you just could not help but be soaked up in as an ex-Melbourne person, and had a couple of teammates fly from South Australia and whatnot and be involved with it. And Adam Uze, a good friend of mine who was obviously a coach then too, like he couldn't have his family over either too, but to be in the room and felt like we were his family. So to be there and enjoy it with him and celebrate that moment. And like we had been to top of the mountain, although I didn't put the flag in the ground in 2000, but it was just pivotal. And then to see everyone's faces around it and Melbourne people, soak up that atmosphere, and to be in West Australia was bloody nice. And I had met Tommy, so that was the first time there. It's a good photo, that one. And he's a very good player in his own right. But yeah, it was just great to be in there. And Gary Lyon was in there too, and he was interviewing. To see a smile on his face too, and like he'd been to the depths with this footy club, and to see the smile on his face and what it meant to him to for the club to be successful again was enormous.
I love the detail that you pointed out that you're wearing your match worn 2000 grand
match
final.
one.
How many, like that's probably worth a bit. How many jumpers have you got just lying around at home?
I've got them all.
Yeah.
I've got them all. I kept them, every single one of them, of every year. My first one's framed. A Woolen 97 one. My first Pies one's framed. I got a Brownlow bit of memorabilia. But yeah, I've got every jumper, Heritage, Anzac Days, pre-season jumpers. Yeah, like the great property stewards we had over both my clubs. That was the first thing players did when they finished the season. Where's my jumper? Because you get new ones next year. So yeah, all folded up in a box, but pride of place.
D's obviously missing finals this year. Got a good young group of kids, Taj being one of them. How do you see the bounce back next year? There's been a lot of hype around the club at the moment. Hype might not be the right word, but a lot of talk. Can you see them sort of getting back into it next season?
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of people outside the football world, unless you've been involved in a footy club or whether you coach or player, I understand how hard the season is and how hard this game is to play. This is the hardest game in the world to play, and the season's a marathon, and they're hard to win. So you got to get a bit of luck. You got to be healthy. Everything's got to be going at the right time for you to win it. And you're not always going to win it. You got 17 other teams out there trying to knock you off and beat you and do the same thing you're trying to do. So they're hard to go. And although they haven't won one, I think they've been successful in the last couple of years, although just haven't been able to execute in the final moments. And that happens, but geez, they haven't done much wrong. And although this year they've fallen away a little bit and haven't got facets of their game right, they'll bounce back. They've got a good list still strong, still hungry. Yeah, a few things haven't gone right, but a good time to reflect, review it, get to off-season, enjoy a break, then come back to a pre-season fully committed and go again and go to war again and see what you can do. They'll have some time now. They'll get back to pre-season. I would have thought a little bit earlier, get to some surgeries and come in hopefully healthy and get going again, and try and put everything that's happened behind them and see if they can embark on another battle and try and win one again.
Well, Wowie, it's been great to chat. Love hearing about your time in the game, and it's an exciting position for you to be in as a father of an AFL player. So thanks for making some time in your trip down to Melbourne, and good luck with Taj's future.
Yeah, my pleasure. Great to be here. Thanks, Ben.